So I started reading books from successful salesmen, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, educators, whatever the case is. I just started reading that stuff. And little by little, I started to practice their habits into my life. And that's once I started to change my habits around that. I like to say I killed the old me. The old me is dead. He's buried. He's no longer in existence. I am a new person.
Hi, Dan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to Peak Performance Perspectives with Mark Talukdar, where we empower entrepreneurs to master their health, wealth, and have fulfilling relationships. Which brings me to the question, Dan. What does peak performance mean to you?
Yeah, peak performance. I love this question. It's just a matter of, I like to ask myself, how badly do I want it? Every single day when I wake up, the first question is, how badly do I want it? How badly do I want to attack it? Peak performance is just performing at your optimum level in all areas in your life, right? So not half-assing anything, putting all your energy, all your effort, high frequency into every activity you do every single day.
What got you to be this way? What sparked your journey towards self-mastery?
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I've always had this burning desire inside of me. I like to think that came from my parents and my grandparents, right? And we'll get into that in a little bit on why that is. But I just had this burning desire in front of me. But what actually sparked the change was my brother got me my first entrepreneurial book 6 years ago. I believe it was for my birthday. He got me my first entrepreneurial book. Once I read, that was the spark that ignited a fuse into diving into other books, right? And that's really where the obsession stepped in. I went from reading books to watching YouTube videos, motivational speeches and stuff like that, to buying online courses, to eventually attending networking events. So that's pretty much like the ladder that I experienced.
How about your family?
Yeah, most of my family is in Peru. So my family is actually from Peru. That's where most of my family are right now. But here in the US, it's my parents, me and my brother, couple uncles, couple cousins. My grandparents passed away, but when they were alive, they were here with us as well. And it was a journey for my parents when they came here. They came here in their late 20s. My brother was 2 and I was 6 months old. And my uncle and my dad, they had a friend who lived in Peru as well, but he came to America. And he's telling my uncle and my dad all these opportunities that they can find here. Housing was available, job opportunities were available, a lot more than what was available in Peru. Peru was a third world country. So after hearing this, my uncle and my dad, they were like, oh man, like the more they kept talking, the more they wanted to come to America. So my uncle, my dad talked to my mom. Eventually they decided to come down here, but it would have been hard for them to come here, not having anything in the beginning, to carry 2 kids with them. So my brother went with them because he was old enough. He was eating, he was walking. He was old enough to kind of function on his own. I was still 6 months old. So they left me behind with my grandparents in Peru for 3 years. My parents left me for 3 years so they can come here and pretty much make a living for us. Once they found a stable home for us and they had the income, proper income from all the jobs they were working, eventually they came back to Peru to get me, bring me to America. And 6 months later, my grandparents who raised me over there, they came over here as well. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what happened. My parents made a lot of sacrifices, man. Their whole life was in Peru, right? So you got to think, they left their family behind. They left their careers. They graduated college, right? They were actually accountants. That's what they majored in. That's what their primary job was. They left that as well. They left their family. They left everything behind. And the thing is, when you move to another country, that degree doesn't accumulate here. So they can't be accountants here. You would still have to go to school and get another degree and stuff. So my parents were always good with numbers, but when they moved here, they had to start from the bottom up, just working just minimum job, minimum wage, working at McDonald's, working at low class restaurants, etc., and move up from there.
Having been left in Peru at 6 months old, staying there till 3, did that have any long-term impacts on you?
Not that I can think of. I don't remember it. The earliest I remember was, I believe, when I was 5 or 6. And the earliest moment I remember is when my grandparents came here with me to America. So I was more like 3 or 4. That's the earliest memory I remember. And the only thing that I can think of that would have been different if I came here originally with my parents is that my grandparents raised me. Right. So I've always grew up with the mindset that they were my actual parents. Right. Even though as I got older, I understood that they were my grandparents, but I always had such a close bond with them. I would say a closer bond with them than my actual parents. Right. Because when you're that young, those first few years, whoever you spend your time with the most is who you build a long lasting impact on. So I've always thought as my grandparent, as my parents. And I've always been close to them. And God rest their soul, they're no longer with us. But I'm glad that they got to come here with me. I didn't even know this. I didn't know this wasn't planned or anything. They came here with us, and they were able to watch me grow up. They were able to take care of my brother as well, because originally my brother came here, so they were with them. So it was just like we were all reunited, and it was a good feeling.
Dan, I have 100 questions to ask you about the podcast, about the mission, about your work. But before I get into any of that, I want to take a moment to just appreciate you for who you are. And the reason for that is, in a world where everybody is almost always rushing to come to conclusions and blaming others for whatever they're suffering from, it would have been very easy for you to retell this story in a different way about how traumatic it might have been, how much you felt abandoned by your parents and all of that. But the fact, and I know I just asked you if it did have any long-term impacts, and you said, no, maybe there is perhaps something there, maybe there's perhaps something you don't want to talk about. But the fact that you still have so much gratitude for your family, right? Because as difficult as it may have been to be left in a country with your grandparents and know your parents moved away with their brother, you understand why that had to be done. And this is the quintessential immigrant story, that
Yes.
when we work with immigrants and we get to know their families and the cultures, these stories are there everywhere. So I just really wanted to just take a pause to really appreciate the type of person you are, that all these years later, you still look at it was something that needed to be done, and it was done. And I'm grateful to have my family, and I wouldn't be here who I am without them. So really, thanks for that.
No, and thank you for acknowledging that. I wasn't, when I was younger, I didn't fully understand the sacrifice. It wasn't until I was in my 20s. Actually, I didn't even hear the whole story about what happened until I was in my 20s. And once my mom and dad started feeding me details little by little, I started to put the pieces together. The more I heard about it, the more I appreciated it over the years. Yeah.
You have elevated your life in many areas, from mindset to relationships to your physical body. Which one was the hardest to improve, and why?
I would say the mindset was harder than the body. And the reason I say that was because I was always into fitness. I was into fitness ever since I was in high school. I was about 16, 17 years old. We would be in gym class. We actually be in the weight room, and I would watch the seniors and the juniors lift weights and pump weights. And I knew nothing about the world. But once I saw the athletes doing this, I was like, oh man, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to bench that much. I want to be able to squat that much. I want to be able to do curls in that way. So that's what got me into fitness. Little by little, I started to work out with them. I bought a few dumbbells. I started working out from home. Then eventually I got a gym membership. So fitness was never really challenging for me. It was just always a part of who I was. But the mindset was something completely different. Now, when I was in high school, when I was a teen and in my 20s, I was a completely different person than what I am now. And the level of growth that I had to go through, the level of adversity, the habits I had to change, the mindset I had to cultivate was such a journey. You're talking about something that takes years to not only implement, but to master. And I didn't always know how that worked. And then my brother got me that book I told you about for my birthday. That sparked that interest a little bit more. Okay, maybe this is where I should start. So I started reading books from successful salesmen, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, educators, whatever the case is. I just started reading that stuff. And little by little, I started to practice their habits into my life. And that's once I started to change my habits around that. I like to say I killed the old me. The old me is dead. He's buried. He's no longer in existence. I am a new person, and I'm the man that my parents, when they made that sacrifice to come here, I'm the man that they always envisioned me to be.
Killing off the old you, as romantic as it sounds, it's difficult because that's an identity that you're killing off. While there are definite benefits of it, because it allows you to become this new person, has it affected you adversely in any ways?
I always, as I developed this new me, I always tried to stay the humble person I was, because I was always a good person, right? Even though in the past I would smoke with my friends, I would drink alcohol, I would cause trouble. I didn't really have any goals and visions back then. I was just a regular kid, just living the average life, caused a little bit of trouble here and there. But I always tried to remain good-hearted because that's always the person I was. Deep down inside, I was always that person. And it was really hard to, as I made that transition, to make sure that I don't lose who I was inside in my heart, right? I could shave the identity from the surface and become a brand new person that way, but I couldn't sacrifice not being a good person still, right? I wanted to remain that as my identity.
Sometimes when we make such identity shifts, in my story, I used to be obese and I became really fit, and I had an identity shift myself. And that caused me to not be able to hang out with some of my old friends anymore. because
Yeah.
that's what we all did. We just ate and drank like
Yeah.
anything. So
Yeah.
that was a sacrifice in my example, that because of the identity shift, just couldn't hang out with them anymore. Was there any other losses like that for you?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, exactly what you said is a lot of people who go through this similar journey of personal growth and self-development, a lot of people experience there comes a point in time, especially in the beginning, where you get lonely. It's a lonely road because the people that you hung out with in the past, they're not interested in the things that you are now interested in and the direction you want to go. And for me, it's not like I purposely canceled people out of my life, but it's more like we went in two different directions. So eventually, me and those people drifted off, like people that hung out in high school and in my 20s and jobs I had in the past. It's just those people no longer aligned with the vision that or the future that I was creating for myself. It's not that I had any bad intentions for them or that I disliked them. It's just I naturally gravitated towards people with higher frequency. And that in turn allowed me to up my frequency as well. But there comes a point in time where you face this journey by yourself, right? There's a saying that goes, there's a reason why a Lamborghini has two seats in a car and why a bus has 50. Because the higher you go up in the ladder, the more you work on yourself, the less people are going to be around. And that's just the way it is. But that's only the first during the beginning. As you start continuing through that journey, you're going to find people who are going to resonate with you, people who are going to align with your frequency. Although you're losing friends in the beginning, you're going to get new friends back. So you're not always going to be alone. Eventually, you're going to find your tribe and the people that are going to support you. Those are the people that you should be keeping in your life.
You talked about the loneliness of
Yeah.
scaling up. Entrepreneurship alone is a very lonely journey because all of a sudden you're not doing the things that your friends or family members are doing. Even if
Yeah.
it's not something crazy like binge drinking, just normal things like you're hanging out with your friends and everybody's talking about the newest television show and you don't have any clue what they're talking about. And you working the weekend and them looking at you thinking, why? Isn't life about balance and having fun?
Yeah.
The higher
Yeah.
you go, the lonelier you get. What do you do to combat with that loneliness?
Yeah, to be honest with you, based on my personal experience, as I started to develop myself and I became this new person, I started to get more busier, right? I aligned my purpose with my goals. I started to get into the trades or the industries that I wanted to get to. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But it got to a point where I got so busy focusing on myself that I did notice the loneliness, but it didn't affect me too much because I was just so focused on becoming this new person and doing anything I could, whether it's fitness, whether it's my nutrition, whether it's in business or with my family. I was just so dialed in that the loneliness didn't really affect me. I did notice it, but I was like, screw that. I was just so in line with my mission at that point. I just didn't care. I just wanted to just keep going.
Love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your fitness journey. You have not only you started out lifting weights in high school, wanting to bench, wanting to do all that stuff and
Yeah.
get some muscles like all most of us do, but you took it to a whole different level, doing marathon.
Yeah.
Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
Yeah, so the marathon was actually an interesting journey. So let's backtrack a little bit why I ran the marathon. When I was in high school, I started lifting weights with the seniors. I was very good at doing that stuff and implementing that into my daily routine, but I was not good at cardio. I was not conditioned. I was not this marathon runner. I wasn't this athlete. I wasn't who I was now. And in high school, you would have these 1 mile test runs, right? In order to pass gym class, you had to do this 1 mile test. You had to do it at a certain amount of time, etc. Now, to prepare for this test, we would practice 1 mile. We would do that a couple times a week. All right. I think we do that for 4 or 5, maybe 6 weeks at a time to prepare us for the actual run, the run that they record for you. And my experience was terrible because again, my conditioning sucked. So I could never do a mile without stopping. It was sufferable. I was sweating. There were times where I was throwing up all the time and it was not a pleasant experience. And this would always happen right before lunch. We would always have gym class right before lunch. So I felt nauseous. I felt like crap. I didn't go to lunch like the rest of the kids did. I went to the nurse's office and I was either thrown up in a bucket or I was just laying there just waiting to feel better. So that experience traumatized me from running. I said, screw this. I'm just going to stick to what I love, which is weight training. And once I graduated high school in my 20s, that's what I kept doing. I just kept lifting weights and getting more familiar with that, going to the the gym and working with actual trainers at the gym, but running was never an interest to me. But it traumatized me. Now, let's fast forward to when my personal development journey started about 6 years ago. And I'm thinking to myself, in order for me to become this person that I say I want to be, I have to eliminate all my fears. I have to eliminate my fear of heights. I have to eliminate my fear of speaking in front of people. And I had to eliminate my fear of running. Okay. And it wasn't until the beginning of last year until I finally made that commitment to sign up for a marathon, right? I'm thinking, what is the best way for me to eliminate the fear of running and actually get good at it? I'm not going to keep letting this hold me back. The thing is, when it comes to fitness, I want to be great in all areas in fitness. I want to be strong. I want to be fast. I want to be lean. I want to practice agility. I want to be good at mobility with my body. I want to meditate. Just fitness holistically is what I wanted. So the best way to do that, the first thing I signed up for was a half marathon. And I remember signing up for this thing. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Is this actually happening? And I hesitated hitting the submit button. I filled out all my information. When it came time to hit the submit button, I hesitated. Eventually I hit it, started training little by little. So I worked up to 1 mile. Okay. I worked up to a mile. Once I mastered that, I went up to 2 miles. Once I mastered that, went up to 3 and etc. Until I got up to 10 miles, which took a few months for me to master. Once I got to that point, I knew I was ready for the half marathon, ran that, crushed it, had a great experience. After that, I'm like, you know what? I got to prove that this wasn't a fluke. I have to prove to myself that I can do this again. I signed up for another half marathon, banged that out. Once I did those two, I knew I was ready to do my first full marathon, which is 26 miles. For those of you who don't know how long that is, 26 miles, that type of experience will challenge you and it will challenge your mindset in ways that you can't believe, especially with my background of not being a runner. So I trained for a total of 10 months to prepare for the full marathon. Ran that. It wasn't what I expected. I had issues with my left knee. My left knee actually gave out on me around mile 8. Okay, mile 8. And there's 26 miles in total. So I still had a long way to go. I wasn't even a third of the way. And the more I ran, the more my legs started hurting. On top of that, it was raining. It was pouring all day. We were running in the woods. We were hopping over streams of water. We were going up and down mountains. It wasn't your average marathon. It wasn't your average run. I felt like it was a Rocky movie. Like in Rocky 4, he's training in the snow. That's exactly how I felt. And so it was an intense experience. And it got to the point where I had to ask myself, okay, I have two choices. I could either keep running, force myself to run, or I can just lay there and die from hypothermia. Because at that time, it was October. It was the fall. It was a bit chilly. I was soaking wet from all the rain and the sweat from running. At that point, I wasn't even running anymore. I was surviving. I had to finish no matter what. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what got me to the finish line.
What did that teach you about mental fortitude?
Oh, man. To be honest with you, I didn't know that I didn't know I was capable of doing something like that. I didn't know my mental fortitude could be that strong. Because I had all these expectations for the marathon. Oh, this is going to be easy. It's going to be great. It was the opposite of what I expected. So the level of mindset I planned for, I was forced to go higher with it. Okay. And which isn't a bad thing. It's adversity it's a test from God that he wanted me to surpass. Adversity I had to face. I wasn't prepared for it, but it's like when you're in those moments where you have no choice but to finish. In those moments, you really find out what you're made of. Once I had that issue with my knee, every single step, just picture this, every single step that you take, your mind is telling you to quit. Every single step for about 5 hours, you want to quit. And what proceeds after that is you have to tell yourself, no, you're not going to quit. So with every negative thought had to come a positive thought on top of that to overcome that. And this was my mind just going back and forth for literally 5 hours. And man, when you're under that type of adversity, you really find out what you're made of. You really find out who you are, and you really find out how badly you want it.
Obviously, the experience, the lessons learned went into shaping you in certain ways. And as a result, now you're leading from the front. You're on stage, talking to people, helping them change their lives. How are you demonstrating these lessons that you've learned in your personal life, daily life?
Yeah. So the first thing I think of is my daily routines or my habits, daily routines and habits. So I always say the way you show up today is how you're going to show up tomorrow. So if you simply go to my Instagram stories, you'll see that I wake up at 3:30 every day. I'm consistent. My morning routine is the same. I wake up at 3:30. I meditate, I reflect, I stretch, I drink a cup of coffee, and I'm at the gym around 5 o'clock. That is my daily routine every single day. And I'll tell you this, a man's daily routine tells a lot about who he is. Okay. Are you that guy that's going to get up at 3:30 in the morning? Or are you the guy that's going to hit the snooze button? Are you the guy that's going to be at the gym at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning? Or are you the guy that's okay with going at 10 in the morning just because it's easier? Right? Our daily habits shape the person that we are. I can tell who a person is simply by their daily habits. I can tell so much from them. I always try to lead by example. I always try to set the bar that others should match to. Always. I always go into this. The whole world is watching me. Okay. What if there was a news crew that followed me the entire day? Maybe they were invisible. I didn't know they were there. And they recorded my life from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. The next day, they took that footage and they broadcasted that on the evening news, 6 o'clock news. What would people see? What would people see? I know what they would see with me. They would see that I'm consistent as hell, that I do wake up at 3:30 in the morning, that I crush it at the gym, that I crush it with my nutrition, that I crush it in business, and all of this, and I still have the energy, the proper energy to give to my family whenever I'm with them. And it's a journey to be able to develop this person. You don't develop this overnight, right? This took years to master, to build consistency through this journey. So for anyone who thinks that they either can't do it or they don't want to do it or it's too hard, listen, you just haven't done it long enough to get used to it. That's all it is.
Is it fair to say that if you don't wake up at 3:30 in the morning and you don't go to the gym at 5 a.m., then you're not a peak performer?
No, what I do want to say, that's actually a good question. I always say you don't have to get up early to be successful or to be, in your case, to be a top performer. That's not true. And I didn't want to make it seem that way. The reason I do it, or the reason I started to do it, was to build discipline. That's why I decided to get up early and be at the gym at a certain time and make sure that I do that every single day. But no, you could get up at 8 in the morning and be a top performer and still go to the gym. You could wake up at 10 and still go to the gym. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but there's just something psychological when you see someone who wakes up at 3:30, they're at the gym at 5 versus someone who doesn't, right? It's just, unfortunately, people judge us all the time, right? Some people are going to think that's badass. Some people are going to say, hey, you don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to do that to be successful. I did it so I could build discipline because I know the man I have to be in order to get to the future that I want. So I knew the level of toughness and relentlessness that I had to develop inside of me. Is that for everyone? No, it's not. But that's what it was for my journey.
Yeah, different people, different lifestyles, different habits.
Yeah.
Right? A dad who is listening to this with 3 kids, we don't want him to be unmotivated and make him feel like he'll never be a peak performer because he has 3 kids under 10 that keep him up all night long and he can't wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Peak performance to us is about being optimal, right? If 3:30 in the morning, if you're a morning guy and you're optimal, you're best at 3:30, you're doing yourself a disservice by going to the gym at noon, right? But if your peak performance is after 2 meals when the carbs set in, going to the gym at 3:30 in the morning is doing a disservice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, given tremendous amount of accomplishments you have had, successes you have had, sometimes it's easy to forget about, from somebody looking at you, it's easy for them to forget about that you're also a human being, that you're also capable of making mistakes, and that you didn't get here by just riding the wave of success one after another, right? Tell us a little bit about some of the setbacks that you had, what you did to physically and mentally prepare to overcome that.
Yeah, I have to say, so it's true. I did have setbacks in my journey. Everyone does. I have to say the number one thing that has helped me with that is finding my tribe, right? I spoke about that earlier. Find your tribe, find your community, find guys that are going to motivate you to keep pushing, because trust me, you're going to have more days where you have setbacks versus where you have achievements. Right? You're going to have more negative thoughts than you have positive thoughts. And it's just that constant mental battle back and forth. So one of the things that, I'll give you an example. When I first started my coaching program, my coaching business, I was doing the behind the scenes stuff. I was recording all the online videos and I was putting all the workout programs together. And I didn't know how to launch it to people. I didn't actually know how to promote my online program at first because I've never done it before. So I signed up with a coach who showed me how to work social media in alignment with my product that I was selling and how to resonate with audiences and how to talk to them in a way where they're going to understand. They know that I can understand them and that my product and my service is going to help better their lives. And it was tough in the beginning because I'm freaking out. I have no idea how to sell this thing. My goal is to help as many people as possible with my product because I do believe that my product can do that. But I have to be able to share with the world. In the beginning, that's one adversity that I faced. Signed up with a coach where I saw that adversity. Signed up with another another coach. He's like the head of our tribe, where he taught me a little bit about public speaking. That was another thing. Another adversity I faced is I wanted to share my story, not just on social media, but I wanted to share with the world on stage. And I didn't have any contacts. I'm reaching out to people, sending messages out to Facebook groups and hoping someone would say yes. And it wasn't until I met this one coach that helped me. He helped get my foot through the door. So that was pretty good. But everyone's going to have different levels of intensity and different levels of adversity. But the number one thing I would say that would help with that is find your tribe. Find people that are going to align to that future you want, because those are the guys that are going to keep pushing you to become that version of yourself.
What advice would you give someone if I'm listening to this and I'm like, I came out of COVID, I'm in a slump, I know that I need to get going, but I just haven't been able to. This is the right podcast. I just heard Dan talk about it. I am now motivated. I want to take the first steps. For someone that is just starting their journey, what is the Dan Flores secret ingredient to just give them a kickstart so they can just take off?
Yeah, I love, this is one of my favorite questions. The one advice I would give someone, especially when they're starting off their journey, is to live each day like it was your last. Okay. Now, there's a lot of people who say they do that. There's a lot of people who think they do that. There's a lot of people who want to do that. But here's my thought process with that. When you're able to live each day like it was your last, and you're able to focus on each task, you're able to cherish that day so much more, because we're always so used to there's always tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just do it tomorrow. But guess what? Tomorrow is never promised. And yesterday is over with. So you can't go backwards. The way you show up today is how you show up tomorrow. So examples of living each day like it was your last. When I'm at the gym, I tell myself, this is the last workout I'm ever going to get. I have to get a 10 out of 10. I have to get an 11 out of 10. I have to get a 12 out of 10 in this workout, because I'm not going to work out tomorrow. I could wake up tomorrow, my legs aren't going to work. I can wake up tomorrow, my arms are going to work. I can wake up tomorrow and I lose my vision. I can't see. When I'm with my family, every single time I spend time with them, I spend time with them like it's the last time I'm ever going to see them. And when you think this way, like you do everything like it's the last time you're going to do it, you're just able to treasure those moments so much more. And guess what? You're able to build a 10 out of 10 day when you have that mentality, and you're able to carry that into the next day. So you already jump started the next day already. You just have to keep that energy going. That's the number one thing I would say for people is, are you truly living in alignment with the person you want to be? And are you truly going all in every single day, every single moment, hour, second that I have, I don't take for granted. I go hard on everything. Every single thing that I do, my intention is to get a 10 out of 10.
Live your life as if it's the last day you're living it. What would you say would be your last message to everyone if it was your last day?
If it was my last day, honestly, I would hope that I would inspire a lot of people. My message per se would be just call your shot. Call your shot. There's so many people who have dreams and visions, and they don't do anything to bring it to light. When we were kids, we wanted to be firefighters. We wanted to be the president. We wanted to be superheroes. And then as we get older, we lose that imagination. Things start getting more serious. Okay, so I'm going to actually find a job that I'm probably going to hate, spend the rest of my life there. One thing I would say is just, if you go down that road and you're able to call your shot and let it be known to the world. Let the world know who you are. Right? Because we're not going to get a second chance. We only have one life to live. So call your shot. Whatever that means to you, call it and let it be known to the world.
Then there are very many people who have accomplished mastery in one aspect of life. But there are very few people who are cross-functional like yourself. It's also much harder when you come from nothing and you have to build yourself up from scratch. The adversities you have faced, the experiences that you have had, the circumstances that you have had to go through to shape your life to become this version of you. It's nothing but astounding to be able to hear your story, hear where you came from, and hear about the daily thoughts that go into your head. I call it getting a glimpse into the mind of a champion. So thank you for being the champion, and thank you for attending our show and sharing your knowledge with everybody. What are your last words for our audience members?
Yeah, my last words, if you don't mind. A lot of people talk about success, okay? And everyone's version of success is different. Everyone's going to define it in their own way, and that's perfectly fine. Everyone has their own definition for it. But I want to share, if it's okay with you, what my definition of success is, and we'll break that down as well. My definition of success is mastering all areas in your life to the highest degree in order to achieve the best outcome possible. Now, for a lot of the audience watching now, they might say, Dan, that's a great definition. I didn't think about that. Let me write that down. And then there might be other people that might say, Dan, I have no idea what you just said. I don't understand what that means. So let's break it down real quick. The first part, mastering all areas in your life. So there's 7 basic areas in our lives, and we tend to only focus on 1 or 2 of them. Typically, it's the one that we favor, and we let the other one suffer. Is that what success is? Just mastering one area and letting the other one suffer? No, it's being able to spread your energy across all 7 areas. Let's talk about the second part. To the highest degree. You could be sharing your energy with every single area, but if you're getting a 4 out of 10 in every single area, is that success? Are you really going all in? Are you putting all your energy, all your effort, your greatest attitude into every single aspect? And then the last part, to achieve the best outcome possible. If you can paint a picture 10 years from now in your mind, who you are, what's your family like, where do you want to live, how do you want to impact the world, what type of relationships do you want to build? If you could paint that picture, what would it look like? All of these 3 components have to align in order to create the best success possible. That's what my definition is.
Dan, thank you for taking the time for being on our show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.